Marita, please invite the moderator. And Juniati is already inside the auditorium? Okay, yes.
So I would like to invite Dr. Ahmad Hamim Sadewa, PhD, to be a moderator. Dr. Ahmad Hamim Sadewa, his current position is teaching staff in Biochemistry Department, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada. He got PhD in Kobe University in 2005, and he done a lot of research in genetics. Okay, for Dr. Hamim, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I'm very happy then to lead the second session of oral presentation, and thank you very much for the MC for very nice introduction. We have 8 presentation here, so because we have also limited time and we should finish this session at around 3 o'clock. So I hope that every presenter stick with the time allocated, which is 15 minutes, including 10 minutes of presentation and 5 minutes of questions or discussions. So first, I would like to invite Ms. Yuniarti. Ms. Yuniarti will present a research entitled "The Effect of Umbi Sarang Semut to P27 key IP gene expression and apoptotic in cervical cancer." So please, Ms. Yuniarti, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to me to be here to share my research with you all. My name is Lely Yuniarti. I'm come from Biochemistry Department, Universitas Islam Bandung. I would like to present my research with the title of "The Effect of Umbi Sarang Semut Microdependence to P27 KIP genes expression and apoptotic in cervical cancer." The reason why we chosen the research topic are more than 500,000 women around the world have cervical cancer, and more than 50% of them died. Epidemiology say that cervical cancer caused by HPV, especially HPV high grade, HPV 16 and 18. Because HPV 16 and 18 have oncogene A6 and A7. The expression of oncogene can inactivation of P53 and linked retinoblastoma. Inactive tumor suppressor gene can cause failure of growth cell growth regulation, and then active EEV, MCYC, and stimulated DNA replication and stimulation of the cycle cell. Beside that, expression of oncogene can inactivation of P27 as inhibitor, CDK inhibitor. Disrupting of a CDK inhibitor can disrupt checkpoint G2S and beginning of dysregulation carcinogenesis and then tumor invasion. P27 genes located in chromosome 12 is the function are tumor suppressor gene, apoptotic mediator, and apoptotic inducer. Inactivating loss or trapped P27 genes can in cytoplasma can cause the cancer. From the statement above, we can conclude that the lower expression of P27 gene expression strong prediction for the poor prognosis. life and death of cell should be balanced to achieve homeostasis. Because necessary is apoptotic is necessary. Apoptotic is the process of cell death, which is genetically regulated. Apoptosis characterized by DNA condensation, DNA fragmentation, and phagocytosis with the neighbor cell. From this chart, we can see that the apoptotic can be main target for the cancer therapy. According to VGO, therapy for cervix are operative, radiation, and chemotherapy, or combination about them. From this chart, from this picture, we can conclude that many side effects from this therapy. That's why we need the inactive agent chemotherapy with the low toxicity. Sarang semut have a secondary metabolism from their plant, fungi, or ant. Perang sarang semut contain flavonoid, tannin, and tocopherol, which is function as suppressor tumor proliferation. Flavonoid from the sarang semut have a role to inhibit the process transduction growth factor and then induce apoptosis and as CDK inhibitor. Tannin from the sarang semut have the function is inhibit proteasomal activation and then cause the accumulation of P27 genes and induce apoptosis and inactive growth factor. The objective of the research are to analyze effect of umbi sarang semut to express P27 genes expression and apoptotic, and to analyze correlation between increasing the P27 genes expression and the number of apoptotic increasing in culture cell. Subject in this research are HeLa cell culture and leukocyte cell culture. This study is the experiment in vitro. The group divided to 4 group. The first group is HeLa is not treated. The second group is the HeLa culture was treated by sarang semut. The third group is leukocyte was not treated, and the fourth group is leukocyte culture was treated by water extract of ubi sarang semut with the concentration 150 microgram per milliliter concentration. Okay, the data analysis by ANOVA, Duncan, and peer correlation test for the correlation test. Result and discussion. This is electrophoresis for expression of P27 genes. From this chart, we can see that sarang semut, water extract sarang semut cannot increase P27 gene expression in the first and second group. This is electrophoresis for the third and fourth group. From this picture, we can see that no significant difference from expression of leukocyte from the leukocyte which is not treated by sarang semut and leukocyte treated by sarang semut. This is a picture about tunnel for apoptotic in magnitude 1,000 times. The picture A is HeLa cell culture is not was treated untreated by sarang semut. We can see that no apoptotic cell, and then but the picture B is cell HeLa was treated by sarang semut. We can see that many cell are apoptosis by characteristic by the brown color and pycnotic and condensation chromatin. Okay, This is a chart from picture before. This is a tunnel for apoptotic from the third and fourth group. The picture A is the leukocyte not treated by sarang semut, and picture B is treated by sarang semut. There is a very little cell is apoptosis. Okay, this is the summary of the picture. There is a significant difference from the HeLa cell which treated by sarang semut and not treated by sarang semut. But there's no significant differences with leukocyte treated by sarang semut and not treated by sarang semut. Okay, there is a chart from the correlation. There is no correlation between increasing P27 expressy gene to apoptosis percentage. Okay, the difference of the research from the previous research is caused by the different tannin concentration was used. The Freevan research, pure tannin was used, but in this research we use the raw water extract sarang semut. In this research, the water extract of umbi sarang semut can increase P27 genes expression, but it is considered that sarang semut influence cell cycle through another pathway. Flavonoid can induce apoptotic through the activating of tumor suppressor gene or increasing apoptosis inducing gene. Flavonoid can induce damaging of mitochondria membrane and causing cell death. Tannin can increase the number of apoptotic increasing Bax protein accumulation and then cause cell death. Okay. This research showed there is no correlation between the P27 genes expression and increasing of apoptotic HeLa cell cancer. This research is different from previous research by Nam Sang Kil, which is result in tannin can increasing P27 genes expression and Bax and stop cell cycle and increasing apoptotic. The different might occur because the water extract of sarang semut influence to P21 or P57 CDK inhibitor protein, but not 27 gene. Apoptotic pathway can be choked by another pathway such as P23 and then activating Bax or BART. Okay, the last conclusion in this research are the water extract of umbi sarang semut cannot increase P27 gene expression in HeLa cell culture, and water extract umbi sarang semut can increase number of apoptosis, and there is no correlation between increasing P27 genes and the number of apoptosis in HeLa cell culture which is treated by sarang semut. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yuniarti. So, is there any questions from the audience? Please.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sika Nindya, and here I have two questions for you. First question is, where did you get the exact concentration of the extract? Is there any preliminary study or previous research which stated that? And the second question is, why did you choose the leukocyte for the control cell or to compare the cytotoxic effect? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, please, you can answer directly.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. For your question, I mean, the first question, I used 150 microgram per liter from the MTT assay. And the second question is, why we choose leukocyte? Before, I tried to use the Vero cell and try to culture epithel from skin, but not success. And after reading a lot of journal, in some journal compare the drugs, compare the drug with the normal cell use leukocyte.
Okay, so I think time is over. So please give applause to Ms. Yuniarti.
Thank you very much
for the presentation. The next presentation, I would like to invite Ms. Desi Vanda Pertiwi. She will present research entitled Anti-EpCAM Antibody Conjugated Low Viscous Chitosan Pectin Nanoparticles for delivering ribosome inactivating proteins from Mirabilis jalapa L. Please, Ms. Yuniarti, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. My name is Desi Vanda Pertiwi. I'm from Faculty of Pharmacy, Gadjah Mada University. In this opportunity, I work to present my research about anti-EpCAM antibody conjugate low viscous chitosan pectin nanoparticle for delivering ribosome inactivating protein from Mirabilis jalapa. My research is pretty similar from my team in previous present. The ribosome inactivating protein are a protein from plants which have activity to depurinate ribosomal RNA, thus inhibiting protein synthesis. This protein show a high cytotoxic activity in malignant cells. The chitosan nanoparticle frequently have been used to delivering protein application. Chitosan nanoparticle is promising as carrier for intracellular delivery of therapeutic protein and genes. Chitosan is a biodegradable polymer that is widely used for prepared nanoparticle. Generally, chitosan was combined with polyanionic to form nanoparticle. Differently with my other member team is in this research I use polyanionic is pectin. In this research we want to modify nanoparticle chitosan to develop a targeted drug delivery. So the special target in this study is epithelial cell adhesion molecule. The EpCAM is a cell surface molecule that is highly expressed in metastatic breast cancer. Therefore, EpCAM will be a potential target from breast cancer therapy. The next, this is the experimental methods. The first is protein extraction, and then we measure protein degree. The next, protein activity assay by cutting DNA supercoiled by electrophoresis method, and in other side, we formulate blank nanoparticle optimization from chitosan and pectin combination from the blank nanoparticle formula, and then we formulate bovine serum albumin nanoparticle optimization, and then from this formula we use to prepare of nanoparticle ribosome inactivating protein, and then conjugate with antibody anti-EpCAM and characterization of nanoparticle. The protein extraction of ribosome inactivating protein were isolated from leaf of Mirabilis jalapa, in especially the red flour, and then protein extract extracted with phosphate buffer solution, and extra protein solution was freeze dried to get protein. The concentration extra protein was determined with biofat protein assay, not bioreactor. This is the result of ribosome inactivating activity assay. In this picture, we show that the ability of cutting DNA supercoiled will increase in increase of concentration extra protein. And then this is the matrix of optimization blank nanoparticle. Blank nanoparticle were prepared from chitosan, low viscose, and pectin with the range of concentration 0.01% up to 1%. And then the highlight in yellow is the dedicated candidate of formula for the next formulation. The minus mark indicate that the solution is clear, and then the plus is indicate that the solution is turbidinated. This is an optimization of formula nanoparticle bovine serum albumin. In this optimization, bovine serum albumin used as a protein model. BSA nanoparticle were prepared based on selected formula from blank nanoparticle optimization. And then BSA concentration we use is in range from 0.01% until 1%. And the base formula we use, we take out for pectin 1% pectin and chitosan 0.01%. From this formula, we prepare for nanoparticle ribosome inactivating protein. Pectin and chitosan concentration was taken from selected formula of nanoparticle BSA, and then concentration of ribosome inactivating protein was based on activity assay. So we use 3 various of concentration, and from the concentration by visual observation we choose the best formula is ribosome inactivating protein from 0.1 milligram per milliliter. The nanoparticle when incubated overnight with 1 milligram of milliliter EpCAM antibody to conjugate with antibody. This is the characterization of nanoparticle. For particle size average, we get 376 nanometer, and for polydispersity index is 0.4, and for zeta potential we get 43 millivolt, and for entrapment efficiency we get 98% of ribosome inactive protein entrapped in nanoparticle. And then this picture is show the result of transmission electromicrogram for seeing morphology of nanoparticle. The nanoparticle is formed in spherical and homogeneous structure. So the conclusion of the research is antibody anti-EpCAM conjugate ribosome inactivating protein chitosan pectin nanoparticle provide a suitable alternative to deliver protein to target cell. Before I close my presentation, I say thanks to Indonesian Torrey Science Foundation for support our research, and then to Professor Sismindari, Dr. Roni Martin from our group, Biomaterial Nanodelivery Research Group, and Nanoparticle RIPS Research Group. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Question for Ms. Desi, please. Any question? No, it's clear. Okay, then big applause for Ms. Desi. Then we will go to the next presentation. We'd like to invite Ms. Anggun Feranisa. She will present research entitled Medium Viscous Chitosan Pectin Nanoparticles Conjugated Anti-EPCAM for Mirabilis jalapa L-ribosome inactivating protein targeted delivery. So, Ms. Anggun, time's yours.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Now I want to present my research about medium viscous chitosan pectin nanoparticles conjugated anti-EPCAM for Mirabilis jalapa ribosome inactivating proteins targeted delivery. Its research is the same project with Desi Vanda Pertiwi and Saika Anindya, the last before presenter. First of all, because of the characteristic of chitosans and pectins, these are widely applied in biomedical and drug delivery system, include chitosans as nanoparticles. RIPS from Mirabilis jalapa showed cytotoxic activity against various malignant cells, and because RIPS have DNA cell-like activity and glycosidase activity that can cut adenine base in 28 srRNA ribosome subunit, the EPCAM receptors is overexpressed in primary and metastatic breast cancer, and the study from the anti-EPCAM antibody conjugated nanoparticles is lacking, so we choose the anti-EPCAM for our study. Other study reported that PLGA nanoparticles conjugated monoclonal antibody successfully delivered BSA proteins as drug models into cancer cells. Thus, we tried to formulate RIPS nanoparticles conjugated anti-EPCAM to develop breast cancer therapy. The experimental method that we used is first, we optimized the nanoparticles by determining the formulate between pectin and chitosans. Then we use BSA as drug models of these nanoparticles. We used Mirabilis jalapa leaves to isolate the crude proteins that contains RIPS. Then the crude proteins degree were measured by Bradford assay. The proteins were freeze-dried and assayed by cutting supercoiled DNA. The RIP nanoparticles were formulated by combined chitosans, RIPS, and pectin. Then the RIPS nanoparticles were conjugated with anti-EPCAM antibody synthesis that conclude the anti-EPCAM, EDAC, and IMOPS. The RIPS nanoparticles were characterized by particle size analyzer, time, and drug entrapment efficiency. The protein's concentration before and after freeze-dried is different. Before freeze-dried, we get 725 micrograms per milliliters, and after freeze-dried, we get 420.154 micrograms per milliliters. Then the RIPS activity assayed by cutting PET28A plasmid, get the results is the linear band in 5,369 base pairs DNA. The optimization matrix of nanoparticles has resulted that in yellow field in the tables, the blank nanoparticle get the optimal formula with where 1% chitosan medium and 0.05% pectin, then 1% pectin and 0.01% chitosan medium. Then based on this result, we formulated the BSA nanoparticles with the combination formula is 1% pectin, 1% BSA, and 0.01% chitosan medium. RIPS nanoparticles have optimal formula in the yellow field of this table. Is 0.01% chitosan medium and 1% pectins contain 0.1 milligrams per milliliter RIPS. Then the RIPS nanoparticles were conjugated with anti-EpCAM to make the immune nanoparticles. The characterization of nanoparticles, basic particle size analyzer resulted the average particle size is 360.8 nanometers. The PI is 0.315. The zeta potential is 43.94 millivolt, and the entrapment efficiency resulted 98.97%. The transmission electron micrograph show that the amorphic structure of nanoparticles in the white area of this picture. Based on the results, we can conclude that the RIPS chitosan pectin nanoparticles conjugated anti-EpCAM formulated in this research possible to develop a targeted cancer therapy, and these nanoparticles possible to treat the cytotoxicity effects and cells uptake to breast cancer cells. This research is supported by Indonesian Toray Science Foundations, and I will thank you, my supervisors, Professor Dr. Sismindari and Dr. Roni Martin, MSI, then by the research group, RIPS Nanoparticle Team Projects, Faculty of Pharmacy and Research Center for Biotechnology, UGM. Thank you for your patience and attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anggun. So again, I would like to invite all participants to give a question to Ms. Anggun. Instead, she will very lonely. Yeah, please, please give us a question to her. Okay, please.
I'm from Pharmacy Faculty. I would like to ask you, why did you use BSA as a model protein? Did they possess the same characteristic with RIP, maybe? And why? What the differences between the medium viscose chitosans and the low viscose chitosans? Because is it very? Produce very similar or very different nanoparticles? Maybe. Thank you very much. That's what.
Thank you. In this research, we used BSA as drug models because the BSA is the common proteins. can restrict the ribs as proteins too. So before we formulated the nanoparticles with the ribs, we optimization first with BSA. So we can look at the optimal formula in BSA. We can use it in ribs nanoparticles.
What about their molecular weight? Because I think the BSA have a different molecular weight than the rib, and it might affect the formulations, I think. Why do you want to use BSA beside the commonly used, is a common protein beside that?
The BSA size nanoparticle is the BSA have size more bigger surely for compare than ribs, but the pectin chitosan nanoparticles is lacking study. The study of this nanoparticle is lacking, so we first we use BSA before we know that the pectin chitosan nanoparticles is can formulate or no. Then, the second question.
The second question is what the difference is between the medium viscose chitosan and low viscose chitosan, because your team is using a very different viscosity of chitosans, yeah. And then maybe is the viscosity affecting the formulation? Nanoparticle, maybe the size, or maybe the polydispersity index, or maybe the zeta potential, or maybe the uptakes of the nanoparticles. Thank you very much.
Yes. We use the medium and low viscose is to compare to optimization which one is more effective with the medium viscose or low viscose chitosan. So we look the result. If the medium is more effective than low, we choose medium viscose. Or if the low viscose is more effective than medium, we use low viscose. The size is the chain is difference between low viscose and medium viscose too. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's enough. So please give big applause to Ms. Anggun Feranisa. Thank you very much for your presentation. For the fourth presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Johannes C. Wibowo. He will present his research entitled In Silico Study of 3 terpene class compounds in Indonesian plants and its similar compounds as EGFR inhibitors. So please, Mr. Johannes C. Wibowo, time's yours.
Good afternoon, audience. We are medical students from Faculty of Medicine Sebelas Maret University. We will present our research entitled In Silico Study of Tryptophan class compounds in Indonesian plants and its similar compounds as EGFR inhibitors. EGFR responsible for many cancers, head and neck cancers, glioma, and non-small carcinoma. For example, in non-small lung, 60% of non-small lung carcinoma has overexpression of EGFR. We use another previous report that previous study report that EGFR could inhibit by tryptophan class compound by inhibit its activity in tyrosine kinase domain. In this research, we use another tryptophan class, Lansiodat and alpha amirin, which widely found in Indonesia, Lansium domesticum and Orthospirone stamineus. Our method uses three-dimensional structure of EGFR actinitin complex obtained from protein data bank with PDB ID 3 key W key. Actinitin and unrelated residue was removed from EGFR actinitin complex using autodoc tools. We obtained 2 and 3-dimensional structure of alpha amirin and Lansiodat and also its similar compounds from PubChem. We perform Marvin sketch to transform 2-dimensional structure we will not available in PubChem into 3-dimensional structure. We perform molecular docking by using hex H.00 to compute possible interaction of EGFR compounds complex. Analyze and visualize EGFR compounds complexes using Chimera 1.9. This is EGFR extracellular domain. We use extracellular domains is a specific binding site of several standard monoclonal antibody, such as cetuximab. Extracellular domain divided to 4 domains. The blue regions represent the domain 1, and the green represent the domain 2. And the domain 3 represented by yellow, domain 4 by red. Our study is the first molecular docking study which reveal the binding activities of bioactive compounds in extracellular domains. Domain 2 and domain 4 responsible for EGFR dimerization, which will induce intracellular pathway involved in carcinogenesis. For example, pertuzumab binds to domain 2, thus will preventing EGFR dimerization. In our research, alpha amirin bind to domain 2 with 269.87 kilojoule per mole binding energy, and Lansiodat bind to domain 4 with 170.20 kilojoule per mole binding energy. And future finding about 62.3% alpha amirin similar compound bind to domain 2 as well, and 100% of Lansiodat similar compounds bind to domain 2 of EGFR. Here is the results of our study, and this is the alpha amirin similar compounds, 100%. This is the conformational analysis visualized by Chimera 1.9. There are 3 pseudo bonds which represented by yellow. The next, the Lansiodat as well has 2 pseudo bonds represented by visualization of Chimera. Here. Conclusion of our study: alpha amirin and Lansiodat bind to domain 2 and domain 4 respectively. This finding indicates that alpha-mirin and lansudate could interface dimerization of EGFR. It might inhibit carcinogenesis of EGFR-related cancer. Almost of alpha-mirin and lansudate similar compounds also bind to domain 2. Our study is very limited, so future research to confirm this finding is very recommended. Thank you for our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johannes. So, is there any question? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Thank you for the time. My name is Betty. I just one question. How is the feasibility of this research in the actual condition? It is I saw this is a docking program with a program. If we make it in actual condition, is the result is the same, or what is the feasibility? Thank you.
This study is initial research to make a new perspective that natural compound has also a binding activity in extracellular domain. By this research, I think that this research is could confirm by next preclinical, so we could not answer that question by
okay, other questions? No, I have one question for you. So you recommend further research, yeah, to confirm this finding, and then what is exactly the research suitable for your recommendation?
Before preclinical research, maybe it should be confirmed by other computational research, such as phylogenetic of this compound or the future molecular docking research. So after it results in a good conclusion, it should be preclinical studies.
Okay, thank you very much. So we give big applause for Mr. Johannes T. Wibowo. Okay, please. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move to the fifth presentation. Oh yeah, okay. Mr. Yoga Mulia Pratama.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. Mr. Yoga will present the research entitled Structure of M397 SARS-CoV neutralizing antibody interact with the MERS-CoV spike receptors analyzed by in silico method. So please, Mr. Yoga, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. And good morning, audience. Good afternoon, audience. Okay, my name Ege Cesaria Pratama Putra. Here, I will present our research about structure of M396 SARS-CoV, SARS coronavirus neutralizing antibody, interact with MERS coronavirus spike receptor analyzed by in silico method. So, next. So, this is the introduction. We know that MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, is caused by MERS coronavirus infection. MERS coronavirus infection, then MERS coronavirus is the family of coronavirus, and from genetic phylogenetic shown that the characterization of this virus just same with the SARS virus like this, and this MERS coronavirus include in subfamily of Coronavirinae and genus Beta coronavirus. Here, MERS coronavirus is a RNA virus and have a strong relation phylogenetic relation with SARS coronavirus. Okay, and then the infectious state of MERS-CoV is caused by binding of spike receptor into the specific cellular receptor in the human is the dipeptidyl peptidase 4. This is the cellular receptor, and when MERS-CoV spike receptor bind to the dipeptidyl peptidase or DPP4, it will make this virion, the MERS-CoV virion, enter to the body. Okay, and the RBD structural similarity has a structural similarity with SARS-CoV, and we know that MERS-CoV was originated from animal as reservoir. And then the case here, first case of MERS-CoV was in Saudi Arabia in 2012, and hospital outbreak in Saudi Arabia, it's caused 30% of MERS-CoV died in Saudi Arabia. But in Indonesia, has been no case, but we need to be aware because there are many of Indonesian people traveling to the Saudi Arabia because the Haji like this. Okay. Our method use molecular docking. It's the computational research. Here we use dipeptidyl peptidase 4 from receptor MERS-CoV virus sample. We obtain this sample from PDB, Protein Data Bank, and this antibody was SARS antibody. Why we use SARS? Because from the introduction we know that the SARS and MERS has a similarity in the receptor like this. So we use SARS antibody F26G919 FAB, M396 ATR, and 1AF10 antibody like this. So the 3BGF is the identity in the protein data bank, ID of this antibody in protein data bank. So all material collected from protein data bank like this. So it is the equipment. So we use in silico method using hex for docking. For molecular docking, we use hex X0.0.0, and we use also autodock tools to eliminate unrelated residue from the receptor and from antibody, just like water and other unrelated residue. And we also perform a phylogenetic study using Mega 5 programs like this. And the visualization of this study, we use Chimera 1.9. Here the procedure of our research. First of all, we collected the spike glycoprotein of MERS-CoV receptor and DPP4 from PDB, and we also collect the antibody from PDB. After that, we eliminate unrelated residue using autodock tool, and then we perform a molecular docking using hex X.00. And after that, the complex of antibody and the receptor will visualize using Chimera 1.9, and we also perform phylogenetic analysis using Mega 5. This is the parameter we use in hex. So the correlation type using shape only, and then just FFT model using 3D fast light, grid dimension 0.6, receptor range 180, ligand range 180, twist range 180, distance range is 40. Here the result and discussion. The conformational binding energy of our research. Here we saw that the MERS-CoV with spike receptor, complex MERS-CoV spike receptor with DPP4 as a reference, here we has a binding energy about 595 kilojoule per mole. In complex of SARS antibody with MERS-CoV, for example, F26G19, the complex with spike receptor has binding energy about 747 kilojoule per mole, and the other antibodies such as M396, the binding energy about 700, and ATR about 61 kilojoule per mole, and one AF10 about 455 kilojoule per mole. From this result, we analyzed that the binding energy of F26G19 and M396 is larger than the binding energy of spike receptor and its cellular receptor in human body. This is the conformational structure of our study. So we can see here that DPP4 bind to MERS-CoV spike receptor at residue THR392, glycine 391, and etc. here. And then this is about antibody M396 with spike receptor of MERS-CoV in proline 469 and GLN 427. And then here the antibody of F26J19 antibody with the MERS-CoV with the binding site ASN 409 and etc. So we can conclude that from this result, antibody M396 FAB and F26G19 FAB bind to MERS-CoV spike receptor at same region with DPP4 to MERS-CoV spike receptor. Here in the same region because the residue is near the DPP4. So this is the result. The antibody F26G19 has a highest affinity, but from PDB it's collected from mouse origin. So and then antibody M396 has a second highest affinity, but collected from human origin like this. And then the antibody ATR is lower binding affinity than DPP4, so we can eliminate this one. And then antibody 1AF10 has a lower binding affinity to the DPP4. Here the result of phylogenetic of spike receptor. The spike receptor SARS and MERS-CoV has a similarity, and then the genetic sequence also have a similarity. So this is our conclusion that the structure and sequence of antibody M396 that from human origin can be adopted to develop passive immunization of MERS-CoV. The antibody F26G19 that come from mouse origin may induce excess immune response if entered to human body because it from mouse, so it cannot be used this antibody, although it has better interaction of MERS-CoV receptor. And then there is also possibility that individual which ever been infected by SARS-CoV may immune from MERS-CoV infection. That's all for me. Thank you for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. So, any question for Mr. Yoga? So, I have one question. For your third conclusion, you said that there is also a possibility that individual which ever been infected with the SARS-CoV may immune from MERS-CoV infection. So how can you explain this conclusion?
Yes, because this I said this in this conclusion because there is a research that MERS-CoV and SARS-CoV has a similarity in the receptor. So when SARS-CoV bind to the receptor, and then when there is a human that will infected by SARS-CoV, and because it has a similarity receptor with the MERS-CoV, so this human also will increase the immune system, and because has a similarity, so when there is a MERS-CoV enter to the body, the immune system will be eliminate this virus.
Okay. So, any question? No? If no question, so please give applause to Mr. Yoga Mulia Pratama. Thank you very much for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we can continue again to the next presenter. For the sixth presentation, I would like to invite Miss Wahyu Hidayati. Miss Wahyu Hidayati will present research entitled Construction and Identification of Yeast Shuttle Vectors containing non-structural 1 and S1 dengue serotype 4 strain Indonesia gene. Yeah. Please, so Miss Wahyu, time is yours.
Sorry. Could somebody help me to operate this? Oh yeah. Oh, already. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. I want to first of all, I want to thank for the moderator for give me the time for present my research. I research about construction and identification of these subtle factors containing non-structural 1 dengue serotype 4 strain Indonesia gene. For the background, as Mr. Amin Subandrio and also Mr. Trijibawa already said yesterday, that dengue already become a major health problems in Indonesia. Why? In 1972, dengue is infected only in Surabaya, but now the infection already spread in all of the province in Indonesia. Means all of the province in Indonesia already infected by the dengue itself, and then there is an increasing infectious rate each year. Based on the Mr. Triwibowo said yesterday, until 2010, the DEPCAS already has the data that already have the fluctuative increasing for infectious rate that also related with the case mortality from dengue infection. Why? Because there is no specific symptoms for dengue infection, like such as the dengue infection has symptoms like fever, and then such as like cold. And if the dengue has the specific symptoms, maybe the family who has a patient of dengue can prevent or can cure the patient. Because there is no specific symptoms, so there is a lot of patients that if the patient doesn't get early cure. And then for save the patient life, we need a good health management, such as we have to give the early and rapid detection, and also we have to give a vaccine for health person. This is the structure of dengue virus. There is the structural molecule of the dengue, and then we know that dengue virus is RNA viral. This is the genome of the dengue. There are 10 protein of the dengue. Structural protein is capsid, M, and envelope. And then for the non-structural, dengue has 7 non-structural protein. Here we use the NS1 because NS1 have a role in virion maturation. So if there is no NS1 protein, the virion that already developed in host cells, it will have no maturations. And the NS1 is also secreted and membrane associated. So in the circulatory system, we can find the NS1. That's why the NS1 is already used for detection for dengue, and it already approved from a lot of research that NS1 rapid detection can give a rapid result for patients from dengue in acute phase, and it is a little bit very cheaper. It is the cheapest way rather than PCR method for identification patients with dengue. And the other one, because Indonesia already, all of the country of Indonesia already infected by dengue, means that Indonesia already Indonesia must develop a vaccine for dengue. But as Mr. Amin Subandrio said, for the vaccine development for dengue, in the last project that dengue vaccine development has a lot of obstacle because the dengue serotypes, there is 4 serotypes, and then there are a lot of proteins in dengue and also immunopathogenesis effect. Aim of the research is we want to get the recombinant of NS1 with yeast shuttle factor, and in the future, the result of the research will express the recombinant protein in yeast, especially in Pichia pastoris. This is the method. Because dengue is RNA viral, so we extract the RNA. After that, we synthesize the cDNA by reverse transcriptase PCR with random primer. After that, we make the construction of recombinant NS1 gene. After we make the construction of recombinant gene, we go to the another step is we have to transform the bacterial first by heat shock method. After that, we identify the recombinant cell by restriction with enzyme, PCR, and sequencing. This is the way we construct the recombinant NS1. This is the Pichia factoris yeast shuttle factor. Why it says yeast shuttle factor? Because we can clone the NS1 gene in E. coli, and after that we can produce the protein in yeast Pichia pastoris. We construct the primer with Primer Pro software. We got the primer is D42412 PST and D43551 XBA1. It is the enzyme that can cut and insert in MCS. And after that, we cut in PS with PST1 and XBA1. We got the factor recombinant. That we transform the bacterial. This is the result. This is the result of PCR amplification, PCR. This is the NS1 gene from cDNA of NS1 from the dengue. LAN1 is a marker, and this is the amplicon. And then we analyze, because we want to clone it into the factor, so we have to isolate the factor from the bacterial, from the vendor. We got already isolated the PEPIC Z alpha B shuttle factor. And then after we construct it, we must transform to bacterial, and this is the isolation of the bacterial clone. This is the cell which bring the factor recombinant, and this is only the factor as the control positive. And then from the isolation plasmid recombinant, we analyze this. This is we analyze this first with PCR. Number 2 is the sample. Number 3 is control positive NS1 gene from the cDNA, and then the number 4 is negative control. From this picture, we can conclude that PCR is succeed because the negative control there is no band, and then the positive control is appeared, and the sample has the same band with the positive control. And this is the analysis with enzyme restriction. This is the sample cut with PMA, and then cut with SAC1, and this is the factor, and this is the sample that uncut it by the enzyme restriction. This is the factor which is uncut it also. Why there is two band for the sample? Because SAC1 can cut in the factor and also can cut in NS1 gene. That's why the sample gives 2 bands. This is the analysis of the sequence. We analyze the sequencing result for find the ORF. We got that ORF of NS1 in factor is all in frame 1 in the first frame, so it make the yeast will be easier for express the protein recombinant. And then another analysis is for amino acid analysis. Here I show the result of the software analysis that there is no mutation in the protein of NS1, and also there is no protein mutation in the factor itself. Means it will be useful, it will be success to express the NS1 protein in yeast cell. And then the conclusion, NS1 dengue 4 strain Indonesia gene cassette in peptide factor were created with right orientation and no mutation occur during construction by sequence analysis, and this gene cassette could be transferred into yeast cell for protein expression. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. So I invite all participants to give questions to Ms. Wahyu Dayati, please. Is there any question? So I have a question for you. How many sample of dengue serotype 4 did you use to be analyzed for identification and construction of this experiment? Yeah.
You mean the colony?
No, not colony. The sample.
Oh, the sample. I use
only one.
The virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only use the serum sample from patient in 2010 with only one.
Only one sample.
Only one sample.
And then you make a colony for this one sample, and you
Yeah.
Okay. Did you compare this your sequence with the standard sequence appear in the GenBank or from other resources?
I analyzed the sequence first. The step is after we got the cDNA, we sequence it, the cDNA. Yes. After that, we compare it with the GenBank data.
Yes.
And for GenBank data, because this is Indonesia strain, of course, there is a few different base pair, the base nucleotides base, and then with the the database in GenBank, and after that we make the primer by ourselves, and then we got the NS1 amplicon. After that we sequence again, so we have 3 times sequencing. The second time sequencing we analyze it for knowing that is there any mutation or error in PCR amplification? And there is no error. After that, we put it into the factory shuttle vector, and after we get the recombinant cell, we get the isolation, and we sequence it again to see about the orientation of the gene in the vector plasmid.
Okay. So for the sequencing, how many sequences do you do you perform to get the whole sequence of NS1 gene?
For NS1, how many?
How many base pairs do you have here?
Here about 1,672.
So how many times did you sequence this more than 1,000?
For two sequencing.
Okay, yeah, I see.
Because it is a lot of long.
Yeah. Okay. So any question? Yes, please.
Wahyu, I want to know, what are you going to do after your research at the moment? Just like this.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you to Mrs. Endang from Unsur. The aim of the research is we want to develop vaccine and also dengue detection with NS1 at that moment. Because at that moment we hasn't known that NS1 also give the immunopathogenesis effect to the patient. At that time we use NS1. That's all.
Okay, I think time is over, so please give applause to Ms. Wahyu Hidayati. We continue to the next presentation, so I would like to invite Ms. Novi Khilafirani. She will present her result entitled The CD8 Plus Lymphocyte Number in the Intestine of Kwashiorkor Rat Model, induced by oral immunization with the 38-KD Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein. So please, Ms. Novi, time's yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Novi Khilafirani. I'm from University of Brawijaya. I want to present my research about the CD8 positive lymphocytes number in the intestine of Kwashiorkor rat model induced by oral immunization with 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein. For the introduction, we know that Kwashiorkor is a type of malnutrition that is caused by low dietary intake of protein. So it can cause decrease of humoral and cellular immunity, so it's susceptible to infectious disease. Cell-mediated immunity is the key of host defense against TB, so that Kwashiorkor is an important risk factor for tuberculosis. So development of vaccine against tuberculosis will be an important strategy to eliminate tuberculosis in Kwashiorkor. CD8 T lymphocyte or CTL is the main effector against bacteria, and many reports have indicated that CD8 lymphocytes are also important for protection against intracellular bacteria such as Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And the previous research showed that the 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein was an adhesion protein on mouse enterocyte, and administration of it orally can induce CD8 T lymphocyte in intestine and lung of normal mice. So on Kwashiorkor rat, the effect of 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein toward the CD8 lymphocyte number in the intestine is not found yet. The objective of this research is to determine the role of oral immunization of 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein in inducing the CD8 lymphocytes number in the intestine of kwashiorkor rat models. So this is my method. We use Rattus norvegicus strain Wistar. The rats divided into 4 groups. One group is normal with normal diet, and 3 groups with kwashiorkor rat model groups, given with 4% protein diet, 2% protein diet, and 0% protein diet. So all of the groups give with oral immunization with 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein and adjuvant ISCOM with booster 2 times. We look immune response in rat intestine by measurement of CD8 lymphocytes in intestine by immunohistochemistry. This is the electrophoresis of Mycobacterium tuberculosis cell walls using SDSPH. This is the result of rat body weights after give with a normal diet and kwashiorkor rat model with low protein diet. This picture shows that kwashiorkor rat models, there is no increase of body weight compared with rat with normal diet. This is the result of the number of intestine CD8 T lymphocyte. The analysis with ANOVA so that the number of CD8 lymphocyte on rats group with low protein diet were not significantly different from the normal rats group. For the discussion, malnutrition is believed to lead an increased susceptibility to infection. The immune system cannot function optimally if malnutrition is present. And the previous research showed that malnutrition profoundly affects cell-mediated immunity, and cell-mediated immunity is the principal host defense against tuberculosis. Lymphoid atrophy is a dramatic feature of protein energy malnutrition. So malnutrition also produces adverse effects on antigenically non-specific mechanism of host defense. So the resistance of the host against bacterial infection is dependent on lymphocytes, antigen specific that participated in the humoral and T-cell system of cell-mediated immunity. According to Jagielski and Murray, in malnutrition, most host defense mechanisms are impaired, so it causes reduction in the number of CD4 and CD8 lymphocytes. But in this research, oral immunization of 38 kilodalton protein of Mycobacterium tuberculosis can increase the number of CD8 lymphocytes in the intestinal of kwashiorkor rats, same with normal rats. So the results suggest that the 38 kilodalton protein of Mycobacterium tuberculosis could function as potent immunogen with induced intestinal immunity in kwashiorkor rat models as well as in normal rat. So those 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein could improve the immune response on malnutrition conditions. So hoping this protein becomes a candidate of oral TB vaccine in the future, especially for malnutrition people. The conclusion that oral immunization of 38 kilodalton Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein can increase the number of CD8 lymphocytes in the intestine of kwashiorkor rat model as many as normal rats. So this research was funded by Hibah Strategies Nasional 2012. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Novi Hirani, for the presentation. I would like to invite participants to deliver the question to her, please. Any question for all participants? No questions. So I have one question for you, Ms. Fira. For the 38 kD Mycobacterium tuberculosis protein, exactly what is the function of this protein in the bacteria.
This protein in Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the cell wall of Mycobacterium tuberculosis.
In the cell wall. So is
Cell
it
wall.
exposed to the external environment, this protein? Exposed to the external environment or exposed to the internal cytoplasm?
External.
External,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, any other question? No, then we give big applause to Ms. Novi Khilavirani. Thank you very much for your presentation. And for the last presentation, I would like to confirm the presence of Ms. Maya Tejasari. Is she here now? Ms. Maya Tejasari, is she here? Because the PowerPoint yet submitted to the committee.
I think she hasn't arrived yet.
No,
Yeah.
no, not appear here. So,
Yes.
so because Ms. Maya Tejasari is not present here, so our presentation in this session 2, only 7 presenters with very interesting topics in each field. So then we can close this session. I return back to the MC. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Hamim, for moderating this presentation session. Okay, so the presentation session has come to an end finally, and I'm very happy and very thankful to all the participants for their patience. It was really excited round of the presentation, and a lot of questions were coming around from the participants also. And till we compile the results, we will be having a 15 minutes tea break, very quick tea break. So please come back within 15 minutes so that we can compile the results. And we will be coming here again for the award ceremony after 15 minutes. Yeah, that is the last. Or we close directly. I don't know. Because the results have not yet compiled. So they have to count the results. I think we will be having just 10 minutes break, so please be back within 10 minutes. Thank you. Because I know the hearts are throbbing. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.